Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today. We're going to be diving into an incredibly fascinating set of sources that all circle around one massive game-changing idea: how to take back executive control of your mind. We'll be breaking down some super practical neuroscience right alongside some deep spiritual frameworks to basically give you a complete toolkit. So let's just jump right in. Now, I want you to ask yourself a quick question. Is your mind a cage or is it a magnet? Seriously, think about it. Does your mind currently feel kind of trapped by modern distractions, endless scrolling, and just exhausting fear? Or does it feel perfectly aligned, magnetized to attract the life, the peace, and the goals you actually want? If you're leaning a bit more toward cage, honestly, don't worry. You are absolutely not alone, and today's explainer is exactly what you need. All right, let's move into section 1, the invisible mental battlefield. To figure out how to fix the mind, we first really need to understand the environment it operates in, right? Across our sources, this really foundational concept emerges. We are fighting an internal, invisible war. It's an everyday battlefield against high-stimulation distraction, ancient biological fears, and these really subtle spiritual lies that try to hijack our focus. One of our sources, which draws from a Christian framework, completely reshapes how we view this struggle. Notice how weapons like fear and doubt, well, they aren't just loud, scary feelings. The source explains they're actually delivered as isolating lies. They whisper things like, "You are too broken to hold on," or "You have to bear this alone." The ultimate strategy here, according to the text, is simply isolation. Moving right along to section 2, firing the fear machine. So let's transition over from the spiritual to the scientific perspective on this exact same battlefield. Our sources on neuroscience show that this internal struggle is heavily driven by our brains prioritizing simple, primal survival over our actual happiness and fulfillment. You see, our brains are basically running on ancient software. We're talking about a threat detection system built for saber-toothed tigers and actual, literal famine. But our modern triggers? There's things like a passive-aggressive email from a boss, or the threat of social embarrassment. Our brain literally uses a biological sledgehammer to crack a modern, non-lethal nut. It treats a simple social misstep with the exact same alarm bells as physical death. Wild, right? And that leaves us to this incredibly powerful quote straight from the source material. You're dedicating so much energy to defending yourself from a hypothetical opponent, an enemy that only exists in your own mind. So the crucial takeaway here is that your brain's alarm system, the amygdala, literally cannot tell the difference between a real physical threat and a completely imagined worst-case scenario. When you sit around worrying about the future, you are quite literally poisoning your present moment with future fiction. So the big question, how do we actually stop it? Well, you have to execute a hostile takeover. For way too long, fear has been the CEO of your life, sitting there making all the big executive decisions. It is time to fire the fear machine. The sources give us 3 really practical steps for this. Step 1, awareness. Just notice your brain doing its anxious little thing, but without judging it. Step 2, redirection. Gently pull your attention out of that imaginary future and anchor it right back in the physical present. And finally, step 3, action. Make your next choice based on what you actually want right now, not what you're frantically trying to avoid tomorrow. Okay, let's jump into section 3, the 5-minute motivation reset. Now, while fear paralyzes us, distraction completely drains us. You definitely know the distraction spiral. It's when you avoid a task, escape into some high-stimulation entertainment, and then end up totally exhausted. Making the effort to do literally anything productive suddenly feels just completely impossible. But what if I told you the cure to this total lack of motivation is exactly 5 minutes long? Our sources reveal this fascinating paradox of surrender. By intentionally doing absolutely nothing for just 5 minutes, you can physically flip a switch in your brain chemistry and reset your entire drive. Here is the wildly simple emergency eject button for when you're feeling unmotivated. Step 1, let go. Basically, give yourself permission to stop fighting your guilt. Step 2, unplug. Now, this one is non-negotiable. No screens, no music, absolutely no podcasts. And step 3, embrace boredom. Just sit there and literally stare at a blank wall for 5 minutes. I know, it sounds a little absurd, but it actually works. And here is exactly why. Think about your dopamine baselines for a second. When you're endless scrolling, your brain's expectation for stimulation is incredibly high. That's that top level of dopamine. Now, if you try to jump straight from that to a normal work task, it feels painfully boring because it's a massive sudden drop in dopamine. But if you do the 5-minute boredom reset, you crash your baseline all the way down. Then, suddenly, jumping to that normal work task is actually a step up in stimulation. This is what the sources call the up-up principle. You didn't change the actual work, you just totally rewired your brain's relationship to it. Which perfectly segues into Section 4, Rewiring with the Perfect Law. Speaking of rewiring, let's shift gears from playing defense to going on the absolute offensive. Our sources dig into the philosopher Neville Goddard and his concept of the perfect law of liberty. Goddard basically divides the world into two types of people: passive hearings, who just complain about their lives, and active doers, who actively reshape them from the inside out. He says the mind is a lot like steel. We all have the exact same fundamental mental substance. The only difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is the internal arrangement of that substance. A demagnetized mind is scattered, it's weak, but a magnetized mind? All the molecules point in the exact same direction and suddenly, boom, it can lift massive weight. The whole secret to success is simply inner rearrangement. And Goddard actually proved this with an incredible personal story. So back in 1942, he was drafted into the U.S. Army. He hated it, absolutely wanted to go home to his family. In March 1943, his official application for discharge was completely disapproved by his colonel. Just a massive brick wall. But that very same night, instead of accepting defeat, he became a doer. He lay in his bunk and vividly imagined that he was already home, in his own bed in New York. Just 9 days later, seemingly out of nowhere, that exact same colonel called him in and handed him an honorable discharge. He changed his reality entirely just by rearranging his mind. So, how do we actually apply this blueprint to ourselves? Here are the 4 steps derived directly from his method. 1. Clarify your desire. You've got to know exactly what it is you want. 2. Rearrange your mind. Do this by creating a short mental scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled. 3. Feel it as real. You have to assume the actual, physical feeling of being there right now. And 4. Persevere. Maintain that inner assumption even when your external reality is telling you otherwise, until it eventually hardens into fact. All right, leading us to our final section, Section 5, filling your tank with joy. Whether you are fighting ancient brain software, resetting your dopamine, or practicing Goddard's Law of Liberty, the ultimate goal isn't just to scrape by. The goal is to experience a completely full tank of true joy. To help maintain that, the Christian source material offers a highly practical daily toolkit that they call spiritual armor. This framework involves things like guarding your thoughts with truth, holding tight to faith, and carrying the sword of the Spirit to stand firm on solid ground. It's really all about shifting from just trying harder in your own strength to trusting deeper in a protective framework. And this protection is what allows us to experience what the text calls chara. This completely redefines our modern everyday idea of joy. Joy isn't just this loud, exhausting happiness that comes and goes. The Greek root here, chara, is a deep-seated gladness. It's a calm delight that flows directly from experiencing grace. It is, essentially, a peaceful, settled delight. I really want to emphasize this incredible point from the sources. Joy is intrusive. It just shows up. We always think we have to hustle harder to manufacture joy from scratch, but honestly, we don't. Joy is like a radio frequency that is constantly broadcasting. It's an undercurrent that is always flowing right beneath the surface. Our only job isn't to create it out of thin air. Our job is simply to calibrate our internal compass, to tune in and just receive it. Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought I want to leave you with today. Are you going to spend your one beautiful life rehearsing for a future disaster that will probably never even happen? Or will you fire that fear machine, reset your mind, and choose to tune right into the frequency of joy, right here, right now? The tools are literally right in your hands. The choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Get out there and start rewiring that mind today.